Hello and welcome to this end of year Life of Die review. I'm your regular host Gordon, and I thought that since we're officially 1 year old it would be a good time to reflect on what was achieved in our first year and look forward to the next one. First and foremost, regular followers will be aware that our output has slowed of late and that there hasn't been anything new at all in December. This was in part because of work commitments, wanting to have a little break over the Christmas period, and also because I'm going to be spending a few months focusing on novel writing. But rest assured we are not done, not by a long shot. So looking back, the Life of Die podcast started out and largely remains a podcast where myself and other friends talk about the role-playing games and tabletop games that we love. The first few podcasts saw us talking about Cyberpunk 2020, which was a game I loved as a teenager and indeed actually have played in recent years as well. Basically, if you're a fan of The Matrix and you want to have a role-playing game that's very similar to that, this is the one for you. We then moved on to talking about Free League's excellent Alien role-playing game. I'm a massive fan of that. And my pal Chris, who has been a regular GM on Alien, he joined us to share some of the secrets of how we went about creating campaigns, which I think other GMs will probably enjoy listening to. And even if you're just interested in the game system itself, those early podcasts about that are definitely, I think, worth listening to. I also had created a few intro videos on the YouTube channel so that GMs of that system could play these for their players ahead of running the scenarios, and they cover the scenarios for Hope's Last Day and Charity of the Gods, so have a wee look for them if you're going to run those. You might find those handy. I intend to put up a few podcasts and videos soon actually reviewing both the core rulebook and the Colonial Marines supplement, so watch out for those coming. We also had a Bolt Action podcast, and then soon after that we did the Crown of Command special where Josh, who's the host of the Crown of Command podcast and the driving force behind the incredible Hero Hammer fanzine, came on to talk with us about both projects and the community that grew around it. It was when I appeared in the Crown of Command podcast about 1.5 years, nearly 2 years ago probably now, that I kind of got the idea that podcasting could be fun, and so I owe a debt of gratitude towards Josh for helping me unleash all this this year. Myself and co-host Craig have long been fans of 6mm scale epic Warhammer 40,000, so we did a series of podcasts talking first about our personal history with the game and then outlining our favourite army lists. That series is still incomplete, but we will be back soon, promise, with the Tyranids episode as promised, and then an epic special, and we'll be also fielding your questions from the community on that. Our conversations cross continents as we spoke to Peter Ramos and David McDonald about their new system for epic scale battles, Imperius Dominatus. Unfortunately, we've not had a chance to play that system yet ourselves, mostly because of the pandemic, but partly because our formations and armies have been set up and calibrated for 2nd edition, so we're patiently waiting for the legacy lists, but as soon as they're up, we definitely hope to have a game as quickly as possible. For me though, the highlight of the year was getting to talk to gaming legends Andy Chambers and Gav Thorpe. I'd followed their work during the Games Workshop years, and I've been a 2000 AD fanatic for longer than I care to remember, so it was a real joy for me to hear them both talking about how they created the 2000 AD system for Warlord games, specifically the Strontium Dog miniatures game, and then in Andy's episode he talked about how it was adapted for Judge Dredd. For anyone who missed out on those episodes, I really recommend giving them a listen because I found the discussion of how they developed a gaming system really fascinating. I'd always wondered how it was done and the process for it, so they really did give us access all areas and let me ask all the kind of questions I wanted to know about that stuff, so I highly recommend them. And I'm really grateful of them for being so given to appear on our humble little podcast, especially when it was in the very early days of the podcast and we didn't really have a track record as such. Also worth mentioning in relation to that was that Warlord Games have been doing a 12 Days of Christmas, and during it they released the first pictures of miniatures from the new Slain game, and if that's something you want to know more about, Andy does talk a little bit about it at the end of his podcast, so jump back to February and have a listen to that podcast anyway if you want to hear how he developed a gaming system. But specifically for Slain, there's a couple of minutes towards the very end of the podcast you could skip forward to there. For those of you who are only familiar with us as a podcast, I just want to mention that Life of Die is more than just a podcast. The podcast is definitely central to what we're doing, but our real home is on YouTube, which we also use to produce and host gaming videos. So if you don't want to miss out on any of our podcasts or videos, then don't forget to hit subscribe button on YouTube. For Epic fans, back in 2020 I made, I think it was 4 battle reports, including a recreation of the White Dwarf Battle for Golgotha, which was a lot of fun. This year Because the pandemic kind of stopped us playing, I embarked upon adapting epic community legend Caregdras's jaw-dropping Beyond the Green River campaign, and I'm going to be working on the second chapter of that campaign in 2022. When I say chapter, that's probably, I think it's, the first chapter was 3 battle reports, and I think the next one's about 7 battle reports, so there's plenty of work for me to do on that. And that's only the second chapter. I think there's a third chapter at least after that. It's my hope, though, as well, that the pandemic's going to ease enough to allow myself and Craig to reunite and play some Epic. It's definitely an intention to create some real play videos, most likely beginning maybe late spring and into the summer. For fellow 2000AD fans, there's plenty to look forward to. If you haven't already spotted it, my good friend Alan Stenhouse is running a campaign for the Strontium Dog Miniatures game, which is based on the classic storyline The Killing. The Killing was recently voted for on the 2000AD forum as being the best of all the Strontium Dog tales. So Alan picked it really well and which storyline he wanted to recreate. Not only is he recreating the storyline, but he really does have the look and feel of the source material, I feel, and his captions and the speech bubbles capture the kind of feel and the sparkling dialogue, which is true to the characters we know and love from the strip. So I really highly recommend checking out to see what he's done, because Alan's put a lot of work into it, and it's a kind of love letter, I think, to Strontium Dogs, so it's well worth checking out. I have to say my own contribution to that is fairly minor. Basically, Alan sends me the pictures and I adapt them into video. So I would definitely want to say this is Alan's baby rather than mine. I'm just have the pleasure of adapting them and hosting them on my channel. The Killing is going to be back in early January, but before that we're going to do a Strontium Dog podcast, which is discussing tactics for playing the game. And those tactics, because the system is the same in Judge Dredd, will be adaptable for Judge Dredd. So if you're a Judge Dredd fan but you don't have the Strontium Dog Miniatures game, that's okay. You can listen to this podcast and you'll probably still get something out of it. In addition to that, I'm hoping to create some unboxing videos and reviews for the Cursed Earth card game, Blockmania, Judge Dredd Helter Skelter, and the Helter Skelter Dark Judges expansion pack, along with some videos showing those games in play. I'd also commissioned a good friend of mine, Simon, to paint my miniatures for Warlord's Judge Dredd miniatures game, and that is near completion. The first half of that commission has already been showcased on the channel, so expect part 2 soon. And you can also expect, hopefully I'll do a couple of gaming reports for the Judge Dredd miniatures game as well on the channel at some stage. Also, as a result of that commission, Simon, who was unfamiliar with 2000AD and Judge Dredd, was asking me a lot of questions about the strip, and he's now got the first 10 books of the complete case files because I basically sold it to him about how good Judge Dredd was. So I thought it would be really interesting to get the thoughts of someone who was completely new to the Judge Dredd universe. So Simon and I are planning some podcasts together. We will be reviewing those 10 volumes at the very least. Perhaps if the new Life of Die comic cast is successful, we may grow beyond that, who knows. But watch this space. In the short term then, and as mentioned at the top, I'm going to be focused on writing a novel. It's actually the third book in a series of science fiction novels that I'm writing. I haven't done anything about trying to get any of them published at the moment. That's going to follow once I get book 3 done, and so I can lock down the whole project. But it does mean in the short term that the output will still be kind of reduced to what I want it to be at. But as I say, we're going to have that Strontium Dog podcast and maybe have a couple of other ones later on in the year. And we will be completing the Killing campaign. So as soon as I finish writing that novel, all the content I've just mentioned above, I'm going to be putting a lot of effort and focus into that and trying to get as many reports and podcasts done as possible. So expect the output to ramp up as we head into the spring and definitely the summer. Before I go, I just wanted to take the opportunity to thank everyone who has followed, liked, commented and subscribed to us wherever you've found us. The YouTube channel in particular is one we can actually see how the audience is growing. We've had, I think it's about 300 new subscriptions on YouTube this year, which is huge considering I only started out with about 100. A year ago this was launched as a project to keep friends in touch during the pandemic, but the support and kind words from everyone who's taken the time to give us feedback has been overwhelming. And I have to say your support is appreciated more than I can say. I hope that this minicast has given you some assurance that although we've quietened down recently, this is just a lull before an absolute storm of new material in 2022. So to each and every one of you, thanks for listening and watching. All the best for 2022. And of course, until next time, keep on living the life of Die.